Welcome to our conversation on teen disengagement. That curious shift from kids being all excited about learning to, totally checking out.
Yep. It's so intriguing, isn't it? I mean, how does a teen go from being so engaged to just coasting along almost like a passenger in their own learning journey?
Exactly. And what's fascinating is the idea that disengagement isn't a flaw in the kid, but rather a state influenced by their environment and internal pressures.
Hmm.
It's like when a kid feels overwhelmed or under-challenged, they kind of slip into what some experts call passenger mode.
Yeah, and that resonates a lot. The notion of passenger mode is striking. It's where over half of students show up physically, but aren't really absorbing the material. Kind of like they're there, yet, not really in the moment.
Right, and then you have other modes. There's also resistor mode, where students either act out or withdraw completely because they're signaling something deeper is going on. There's these layers of behavior, each suggesting different underlying needs.
Exactly. And then, of course, there's achiever mode, where kids push themselves relentlessly, sometimes to the point of burnout. But I wonder, is it always good for high achievers to be constantly striving? Or can that lead them to become unhappy achievers?
Oh, absolutely. It's like, you have happy achievers, kids who are enthusiastic and balanced, and then you have those who are, trapped in perfectionism. They chase A's, and then, oh my gosh, even a small setback can knock them off.
Right.
It's such a fine line, isn't it?
Totally. And when it comes to those high pressure environments, even a brilliant student can internalize, that identity solely as the smart kid and then feel crushed when things don't go perfectly.
Exactly. And that's where the caring support of parents and teachers can really make the difference, helping them recognize that they're more than just their grades. It's about appreciating the input and effort rather than simply the outcome.
Absolutely. Speaking of support, I was really struck by the discussion on neurodivergent kids. They often show up in passenger or resistor mode because the system isn't built for them. How do we get these kids to, say, harness their unique abilities?
Well, research indicates that when these kids get learning supports that acknowledge their different styles, like by adapting the classroom environment, maybe even creating a cozy nook like that little Harry Potter cubby idea, they can truly thrive. Like, it's about making learning accessible to how they naturally process information.
Yes, indeed. And isn't it interesting how sometimes the system, by trying to be too strict, like benching kids from extracurriculars if their grades drop, might actually end up pushing them further away from meaningful engagement?
Precisely. There's research showing that strict policies may actually reduce participation in activities that kids love, especially for those in passenger mode who might already be feeling disconnected. It creates this, vicious cycle of disengagement.
I get that. Now, shifting gears a bit, what about the concept of the zone of proximal development, the ZPD? How does that tie into these modes of engagement?
The ZPD is absolutely critical. It's that sweet spot where students are just challenged enough, not too hard that they're overwhelmed and not too easy that they're bored. When they're above or below it, either they're completely checking out due to panic or falling into monotony.
Right, that balance is key. So in a very real sense, if a teacher can adjust the challenges to each kid's ZPD, it can actually prevent them from sliding into either disengagement or overwhelming frustration.
Exactly. And this balance isn't just academic, it affects mental health too. A mismatch between a kid's abilities and the learning challenges can cause stress, apathy, and even a sense of humiliation if they're constantly feeling they're not good enough.
Absolutely. That brings us neatly into transcendent thinking. What's your take on that? How does encouraging big picture, deep meaning making discussions help engage teens?
Transcendent thinking is all about connecting learning to larger, meaningful contexts. It's like prompting kids with deep questions. Why is the United Nations even here? Or what's the real impact of a historical event? This not only sparks curiosity, but also allows teens to process their experiences, especially at a time when self-identity is in flux.
That makes so much sense. And I imagine that approach gives teens, who might normally be passively coasting, an opportunity to become active explorers in their learning, right?
Absolutely. It moves them into what some researchers call explorer mode. In explorer mode, kids are not just passively receiving information, they're digging in, asking questions, and making connections that feel totally personal. It's like when you hear them come home and, they just can't stop recounting what they discovered or how a new
Yes, that
idea
spark is powerful.
ignited them.
So, would you say that the key is to create environments, both at school and at home, that are adaptive and responsive to each child's unique mode of engagement?
Yes, definitely. And, not only that, it's about recognizing that these modes are fluid. A kid might start the day in passenger mode in one class and then shift into explorer mode in another. We shouldn't pigeonhole them into a single category.
Right, they can be dynamic throughout the day. That dynamic nature is really striking. It also implies that any strategies we develop need to be flexible. It's not just a one-size-fits-all solution, especially with the increasing diversity in learning styles and needs among teens.
Exactly. And one of the most critical takeaways is that, disengagement is a signal, a cry for help, basically. It's telling us that the environment isn't matching up with the kids' needs. Whether through academic challenge, supportive relationships, or meaningful choice, there's always a path back to engagement.
Yep, no kid is just lazy, as some might hastily judge. And if we dig a little deeper, the idea of agency, of letting kids have control and choice in their learning, is fundamental, isn't it?
For sure. Agency is, the ability to set goals and, marshal the resources to achieve them. When kids feel like they have a say in what and how they learn, they're more likely to be engaged and resilient, even when they face setbacks.
That really gives them ownership. But here's a little challenge for you. While providing choice is important, isn't there a risk of overloading kids with too many options, causing decision paralysis, or even reinforcing disengagement?
That's a valid point. It's like, you need to present choice within limits, a structured choice rather than a free-for-all. It's a delicate balance, but when done right, it really elevates their engagement.
Absolutely, too many can be too many. And speaking of balance, what remedy do you see for parents and educators who are dealing with the stress of ever-increasing standards? How do we ensure that kids don't feel, crushed by the relentless pressure?
It's about shifting the focus from external outcomes, like grades, towards internal growth and the process of learning itself. Celebrating effort, resilience, and curiosity over perfection can make a huge difference. Encouraging kids to learn from failures and embracing them as part of the growth mindset is
Right,
key.
it's the process, not just the product. It almost reminds me of those moments, when a teacher or a parent recognizes that a small personal project, like converting a storage cabinet into a little study nook, can ignite a whole new approach to learning.
Yes, exactly. That's such a powerful example. It shows that when a teen's environment is responsive, when their quirky ideas get support rather than being shut down, it builds confidence and even sparks, transformative interest
Indeed.
in learning.
And in that spirit, the overarching message seems to be that engagement isn't something fixed. It's fluid, highly context dependent, and most importantly, it signals deeper needs that are just waiting to be addressed.
Absolutely. And at the end of the day, for any parent or educator, the hope is simple. You can make a difference. By being curious, supportive, and flexible, you help shape an environment where teens learn to value and direct their own learning.
That's the crux of it. It really gives me hope that even in the midst of a so-called disengagement crisis, there's so much potential for positive change by understanding these different modes and acting with empathy.
Exactly. And, as we wrap up, it's important to remember that each teen's journey is unique. Engaging them is about listening, really listening, and then responding with creative strategies that, help them rediscover the joy of learning.
So true. Thank you for this engaging deep dive into teen disengagement. It's made me realize how vital it is for us to understand and adapt to the needs of our young learners.
Absolutely, and remember, a little curiosity and flexible support can go a long way in turning frustration into exploration. Thanks for a fantastic discussion.
Indeed, thanks so much.